This video is going to be a bit of a Q&A session about our plans next year to stop working, sell our property, sell everything and go on the road. Now, I basically put together 10 questions or some objections as well to our plans, and I've answered those as best I can. This is not an exhaustive list, but hopefully this will cover a lot of the thoughts and questions that some of you have had regards to our plans for next year. So just to reiterate very briefly, my wife and I are planning to sell our property, sell everything else. Anything we can't sell, we're going to be just getting rid of, giving to charity, giving away, or it'll probably end up in a skip if we can't get rid of it. Then we're looking at accessing my pension, because I'll be 55 next March. Accessing my personal pension, which is about 150,000, plus the proceeds from the sale of our property as well. I've got an update regarding that, and I've got some interesting news, but I'll cover that in another video. So right now I just wanted to cover a few objections or comments that I've had, and just sort of explain. I've obviously been doing a lot of research about what we're planning on doing next year. There's a lot involved in moving to a different country. There's a lot involved with selling a property. There's a lot involved with clearing a property out. There's a lot of mental gymnastics that I'm going through almost on a daily basis because our plans do change. They're changing according to the markets, according to our investments and everything else. Again, I'm going to cover a lot of this in this video and upcoming videos. Just responding to a question about speaking the language. Now, I've said in previous videos that my wife and I do speak the language. Now, I've been learning French since I was a kid at school. I did O-level French. I've spent a lot of time in France, and you learn enough to get by. Last time we went to France was in 2018, so we haven't been for quite a while. But even then, after listening to several CDs of Paul Noble, which is he's a brilliant coach in French, as far as I'm concerned. Quite a radical way of learning. But anyway, we listened to that for a few weeks before we went to France, and I ended up in conversation with the local mairie, the mayor down there, and while we were talking about buying a property, and got on perfectly fine. And he didn't speak a word of English, and we got on absolutely fine. Got our messages across, no problem at all. Now, I'm not fluent in French, far from it. But I've had some comments saying, no, you have to be fluent in French. If you're not fluent in French, you'll be kicked out of the country and all this sort of rubbish. Let's just get this properly set out. You don't have to demonstrate any level of French at all when you're applying for a visa. So you can apply for a 1-year visitor's visa. They don't care whether you speak the language or not. In fact, there's tons of expats, Brits, who live over in France permanently and don't speak a word of the language at all. They've lived out there for 20 odd years, and they don't care to learn the language either. They all stick in their own expat community and everything else. We're going to do that. We're not planning on doing that at all. We want to integrate as much as possible, so we will be using our knowledge of the language as much as possible. Now, just to reiterate exactly what they do require, if you apply for, if you literally just apply for the 1-year visa, you will not be required to, and you can renew that every year. And some people just do that every year, no problem at all. Renew it as long as you can demonstrate all the other income criteria and other stuff, having a property there or having a place to stay there, permanent place, which can be a caravan or a campsite, I will add. As long as you have the address and you've got a permanent long-term booking, that's fine. You don't need to demonstrate that you know the language at all. If you're applying for a multi-year residency visa, which is called a carte de séjour, then you need to have A1 or basic French. Now, any of you who use Duolingo will know that it tells you what level you're at, and A1 is basically kind of beginner's French. You know how to get by, kind of thing, and that's what they would ask you to demonstrate. I don't even know if they do a test for that. Then you look at the 10-year carte de résident, which is you need to demonstrate A2, which is upper beginner. And that is, being able to engage in kind of routine conversations, knowing directions, knowing how to book a hotel, that kind of stuff. And you can learn that pretty much with the Paul Noble system. And that's pretty much where we're at the moment. My wife's probably a little bit more advanced than that. Then if you go full naturalization, which is where you're talking about, getting a French passport, you become a French citizen as such, then they test you and they want a B1, which is lower intermediate. So again, not entirely fluent, but you've got to demonstrate a pretty good level of conversational French, and you must be able to engage in conversation on a variety of subjects, but certainly not fluent by any stretch of the imagination. So when people talk about, oh yeah, you've got to be fluent to live in France, rubbish. You absolutely do not have to at all. But we want to be able to engage and demonstrate our knowledge of French to the best we can, while we're there. Another really popular comment that I get all the time, regardless of what I'm saying on the videos, I'm getting, why don't you move to Thailand? Why don't you move to Philippines? Why don't you move to Vietnam or Malaysia or somewhere like that? I need to make this clear. We want to be around no more than a day's drive away from the UK. The reason being is my wife has elderly parents here. She has other family here. We also have a son and daughter here in the UK, and we don't want to be very far away from them. As far as I know, Thailand, Philippines, where are we? Malaysia, Vietnam, you're not going to be able to get back to the UK within sort of 5 to 7 hours, which where we're looking at in France, you can easily drive back, get on a ferry, and we can be back in the UK, within sort of 7 hours. Within a day, basically. So that's why, if I was in my 20s, single, and had this kind of money, then maybe, I would have considered something like that, because your money goes a lot further, I know. And I'm sure they're beautiful places. I'm not, that's not the issue here. The issue is that we need to be close to the UK. And for what we want out of life, we want to be in France. We love France. We like it very, very much. And if we can get there, we will do. So that's the most desirable option for us right now, and so that's why I don't tend to engage too much with those comments. But thanks anyway. But it's not really an option for us. But some other questions about what will your total pot be, because I've maybe not been clear. I've been sort of saying, we've got money here, we've got money there. After I did my transfer of my defined contribution pension, which was about 70 odd grand, I transferred that over to my SIP. So in my SIP, I now have, it's actually 160k. I've been planning all my figures on 150k, just to be overly cautious, but I've got 160,000 in my SIP, which I'll be able to access when I'm 55, obviously by taking 25% tax free and then doing a drawdown, etc. I'll go into more details on exactly how I'm going to do that when I've decided what I'm going to do nearer the time. We've also got a property which we were hoping for 100k equity. So that'll be 260,000 plus whatever interest and gains we get on our investments between now and next March. So it should be hopefully a minimum of 260,000 will be the total pot. Another one I've had is, why don't you rent your property out? I get a lot of this. Now, just to make it clear, right? So we've got a mortgage that is up in 7 years' time. And we've got to pay that off in 7 years. Now, if we rent the property out, we've got the risk, and this is a big risk, of tenants not wanting to move out when we eventually have to sell the property. There is no way that we can clear the mortgage in that 7 years through income or whatever, unless we win the lottery or something, which we don't even do. So, you've got to be in it to win it, right? So there's no way we can pay that mortgage off in 7 years. So at some point within the next 7 years, we've got to sell the house anyway. That's the only way we're going to be able to pay the mortgage off. And I don't want to use my pension to pay it off, because then I'll be left with nothing and all my money tied up in the house. Also, to do what we want to do, we need the money in the house. So we need to sell it. So I don't want to be tied up with that headache of having a tenant that might refuse to leave, that might, or not even being able to have a tenant. I don't want all that headache. This is more headache. We are getting rid of all the headaches, all the bills, all the ties, all the commitments, the debts, everything. We're getting rid of the whole lot. So nobody's got anything on us. That's the main reason why we absolutely don't want to rent the property out. And it's not rentable in its current state. We'd probably have to have a rewire. We'd probably have to get it checked for, there's all these landlord rules and everything else for tenants and stuff, tenants protection and everything else. So we don't even want to go down that route. Not interested. So that's hopefully answered that question. Another one is, why don't you get a motorhome instead of caravan? We could do. It's something we have considered. Campsite fees are, we hope they're as cheap as we've researched. They may not be. They might be. We've seen certified locations of like £10 a night. I have been told to double check that because they could be outdated figures. I get that. That's fine. Even if our nightly fee was like 25 quid, which is perfectly reasonable. I know that, because even mainstream campsites are £20, £25 for one pitch and 2 adults. If we spend money on a motorhome, now bear in mind we've got an existing caravan that costs us nothing. It'll cost us £1,000 to do the window, fix the front window, which has got a big crack in it. Although I could probably even do it myself with epoxy resin. But to get it done properly, you need about £1,000. Apart from that, it's free. It's done. It's all sorted. Doesn't need any work on it or anything else at all. We just need a tow vehicle, which I'm confident we can get for 15 grand or less. Probably a lot less, actually. Maybe 8 grand, something like that. So if we were to buy a motorhome, we'd be spending 30 grand or more, minimum 30 grand for a motorhome of the type we want. Yes, you can park it at the side of the road, but it's not really very comfortable. I've heard nightmare stories about people breaking into motorhomes at the side of the road and all that sort of thing. I'd rather be a bit safer and a bit more established on a campsite where we're spending a little bit longer. We can get the awning out and live a bit more free, if you like, and have a little bit more space as well. Motorhomes, quite pokey. Yes, you have a little pull-out awning sort of thing, but you can't really do that at the side of the road. Not everywhere anyway. So the extra that we'd spend on the motorhome would pay for at least 1.5 years worth of campsite fees, even at £25 a night. So and by then hopefully we'd have ourselves fully established with some bricks and mortar that we can go to in France, which is the ultimate plan. So that's why we haven't considered a motorhome. I'm not dissing motorhomes. I'm sure they're a perfectly great idea for other people in different situations, but for our situation, it's just not practical. So we're going with the caravan and tow vehicle. Tow car option, and that's it. It's horses for courses. Now the next one's a really, really big one. And it's very important that I cover this. I have alluded to this in a couple of other videos previously. Before I go into that, I want to say some thank yous. Now I was overwhelmed by the response that I've had on the last video. The last video just completely tanked on views for some reason. I don't know why. YouTube really didn't like it. Maybe because I covered so much different stuff in there, spreadsheets and everything else. But I've had an overwhelming response from subscribers, new subscribers, people coming on board, lovely comments, and also a load of super thanks that I want to say thank you back for. We've also had some new members join as well on the membership program. So just to say a big thank you to Steve2449 for your super thanks. You talked also about inspiring others and how a lot of people might be following our videos for inspiration. That's amazing for me. If any one video or if any video on this channel can inspire one other person, then that's fantastic. That's my job done. Thank you very much for your super thanks, Des7250, for contributing to a bottle of wine. Now I don't drink, but I'm hoping that in France I can get a really nice, maybe a Chateau Neuf de Pape non-alcoholic. I don't know. They'll probably spit on me if I ask for something like that in France, but you never know. We'll have a look around. But thank you so much. Also thanks to Richard Colborne 5927 for your super thanks. Much appreciated. Thank you. The Feffel blog, massive supporter of the channel, for your super thanks as well. Really appreciate that. Tollington 9414. And for your associated comments, I really appreciate your super thanks too. Thank you. And for Glenn for your Australian dollar super thanks. I'm assuming that's what that meant. Thank you very much, all the way from Oz. Thank you. Thanks for supporting the channel, to all of you. And also big thanks to our 3 new members, Hilaire, Gravitator and Mike Plummer. Thank you very much for joining the Channel Insider, where you obviously get access to early access to videos, and also the membership behind the scenes and more in-depth videos as well. I really appreciate that. Now, will you be putting your house proceeds into your SIPP to get tax relief? This, as I said, is the big one. Absolutely not. A lot of people seem to. I've done a lot of research on this now, and I've had some advice as well. Not paid for advice, but I've had a lot of advice from this about this, because this is potentially very damaging advice that's being given on the comments. So anyone who's reading the comments about something called pension carry forward, and also paying into your SIPP to get tax relief, be very careful what advice you take from some of these people who are commenting. I'm trying to get on it to make sure that they're not they don't stay on the chat, because this could be very, very dangerous. Basically, you can pay, if you're working, you can pay up to £60,000 a year. If you're earning that, you can pay 100% of your earnings, up to £60,000 a year, into your pension, let's say your SIP, and you will get tax relief at 25% added to that. And they automatically do that. Your pension provider will automatically add it. So quite a lot of money there to be earned, in a year, whatever 25% of 60 grand is. You can also backdate up to 3 years worth, but only if you've earned it within the current tax year. So what people are trying to tell me to do, I don't only earn anywhere near 60 grand a year. I earn like 20 grand a year if I'm lucky. So if I wanted to pay all of my 20 grand a year to get tax relief into my SIP, that's fine. But the limit is 60 grand, right? So I won't have used my whole allowance. Now, what they're talking about is, oh yeah, you sell your property, get 100 grand, slap that in, use your 3 years previous that you haven't used, slap that into your SIP. No way. So how that works is, let's say I earned 20 grand this year. I can pay in 20 grand, up to 100% of my income into my SIP and get tax relief. If I want to backdate, well, I can't suddenly go, well, actually, I didn't use 60 grand from last year. I can pay in another 60 grand and I can still pay another 40 grand from this year. It doesn't work like that. You have to have earned it in the tax year. So another example would be, let's say I earned 60,000 this year and I'm allowed to pay in 60 grand, because that's the maximum, 100% of my income, and 60 grand is the limit. I pay 60 grand into my SIP to get tax relief. If I then wanted to pay in, say, 50 grand from my property to use last year's tax allowance, I would have had to earn 50 grand this year as well. So I'd have had to earn 110,000 to pay into my SIP, if that makes sense. You can only pay in what you've earned in the current tax year. So you can't just go, well, I've got 3 years worth, so that's what, 3 lots of 60,000, that's 180,000 that I can backdate and I can pay in this year, even if I've only earned 10 grand this year. No way. What will happen is you'll be flagged up by HMRC, what will happen is you'll get the tax relief in your SIP, and then you'll end up with a massive tax bill, and you'll have HMRC on your case, because it's called recycling, and you absolutely cannot do that. So just wanted to make that clear. So the most that I can pay in is basically what I've earned. I can't even pay up to the 60,000. It's not like I can go, oh yeah, well, I've got some money from the property, I can pay that in. You can't do that. You just cannot do that. Hopefully that's clear enough. If it's not, just look it up. Go on the government website. Go on HL's website's pretty good for it as well. I even had somebody trying to point out HL's terms and conditions, and I was like, well, it's plain and simple in writing on their site. You can't do that. Anyway. Next one was, why don't you live in a park home? Now, we've looked into this because this could have been a goer. Park home being like a static caravan on a holiday park, if you like. There's two types of caravan they do. They do residential, or they do a holiday home. The residential ones, these caravans are, quite often they have like a brick surround base, like a conservatory base around them. They're worth more than my house is worth. There's just no way we can afford one of these residential places. Plus you have massive fees as well each year. As an absolute no, I've looked into it, can't do it. Unless we go to some real pokey area where we're just not interested in anyway. So we looked at maybe a residential, and we thought, we'll have a residential caravan. So we've got a base in the UK, then we can tour around the country in this caravan, and then we can go and get a property in France, and then when we come back, we can go into our residential caravan. That's all well and good. But you have to show a council tax bill for a bricks and mortar property in the UK or France with your name on it, and you have to show that every year. So although we've got a family address that we can use for banking purposes, for dentists, for doctors, for all of that sort of stuff, we won't be able to use that because we won't be able to get on the council tax, I don't think. We're still looking into it, but that could be a problem. So buying a holiday home, until we've actually got some bricks and mortar somewhere that we're paying council tax on, that's going to be an issue. They do accept French ones, so that might be something we can do. But yeah, that's kind of out the window at the moment. So we're looking like we're going to be more nomadic using the family address until we can get something settled in France. Another question I get is, which is more, it's more trying to bait me than a question. Why did you get an interest-only mortgage? Really helpful question. it's just people being downright nosy. It's got nothing to do with what our plans are. It's got nothing to do with what we're doing going forward. It is what it is. But I just wanted to go into a little bit of detail about that, just to explain where we're at. Now, the reason I want to explain this is because it ties in with why I am very, very adverse to IFAs and certainly paying for financial advice. And the reason being is when we originally took our mortgage out on this house, we sat down with an IFA, an independent financial advisor, who sold us an endowment mortgage, with interest-only mortgage with an endowment policy. You heard about the endowment scandal, right? That's what he was trying to do. And that's because they pay the biggest commission. So it wasn't best advice at all. It was what he had the best commission on. So we took this interest-only mortgage. We subsequently cashed in the endowment and changed it over, because where I was working, I got the job at the bank and I had a big share program where I was going to get shares and everything else. So I then transferred that mortgage over to an interest-only mortgage with the bank, and used the share options, which I thought was going to be brilliant. That was acceptable at the time as evidence that I would be able to repay my mortgage. Now, the plan was always to sell the property and downsize anyway. We weren't going to stay here forever, and we knew that because we didn't want a big property like we've got. Well, I say big, it's only 3-bedroom, but we didn't want as big a property going forward. So we kept the interest-only mortgage, and we just haven't bothered changing it really over the years. So unfortunately, the share options turned out as peanuts. When I took redundancy and cashed in the shares, that didn't really work. But we never changed it over because we knew that we were selling the property anyway, and that was the plan. And then when we realised once I doubled my pension, which I did over the last 7 years, self-investing, had I not taken it out and put it in a SIP, I wouldn't have been able to double the money, because the pension managers at the time, it was just losing money, and it was losing money on fees, it was losing money on bad management and everything else. Luckily, once I started taking control of it, I doubled the money, more than doubled it, and although I pulled out some of the funds when I was worried about the markets dropping previously. It was a bit of a mistake. I lost a bit of money, but I didn't really lose any money. I'd already gained massively, more than doubled my pensions anyway. So, I took the hit, and I've actually gained back over 10 grand since then anyway. So yeah, when I get people saying, why did you get an interest-only mortgage? You worked in a bank, you should know better. Absolutely not. Working in a bank just makes you a better salesman. It doesn't give you any more advantage financially in the know-how as anybody else, Joe Bloggs on the street. You really don't. Anybody working in a bank has no more idea about finances than a regular member of the public at all, including IFAs. I used to work with IFAs or FAs as they were known in the bank, and I remember sitting down with an FA. We used to sit down with FAs all the time and go through all of our finances and everything else. I remember one young guy, he's in the bank, all he's worried about is what he's earning, and he came out of our interview shouting, going, why is he being paid more than me? I don't get it. I'm a financial advisor. He's, blurting about my salary out, totally breach of confidentiality. No interest in helping me financially or looking to plan my future or anything like that. And he, once they stopped FAs in the bank, he went off to be an independent financial advisor. So that's the kind of people that you're dealing with when you're sitting down paying several £1,000s for advice. So, I've got inside knowledge on that, and it's a no from me. Thank you. So another question I get, why don't you carry on working? Well, I'll probably dress this up as something slightly different to what it is really. I keep saying about retirement, and I'm kind of thinking now it's really sort of semi-retirement. I am not adverse to working at all. I've worked all my life, since I was 15 years old. I'm certainly not lazy, and I've worked damn hard. But I just want to take a step back. I'm already self-employed. I'm very flexible in how I work, and that will probably continue. There's always online stuff to do. There's always other bits and pieces that I can do and maybe want to do. I might want to turn some of my hobbies into earning as well. So it's not really about retirement. It's more about the freedom. What we're doing is we're making a massive change to our situation. We're paring down on everything. When we're cutting down on all our outgoings so that we're not tied to anything. That's really what we're about. That's kind of what we want to achieve. And hopefully the money will string out long enough for us to enjoy that, for as long as possible. That's the whole idea. So it's more about really, I suppose, semi-retiring, and being available for work, but we want that freedom. We want that time freedom, which we haven't got when we're constantly working solidly, chasing just to pay the bills. Most of my week is literally working to just pay the bills that are unnecessary. Those bills will be gone when we're in a caravan. Yes, there'll be different expenses, but we'll be able to afford that with the drawdown from the pension. That's the idea anyway. So it leads me nicely on to my next question is, and then again, this is really I think this is usually just to bait me. What will you do when you run out of money? You're going to be homeless. You're going to be a hobo. You're going to be begging on the street. It will never happen. As I said before, we're not leaving the Western world. We are certainly not going to be homeless. People are going, oh yeah, there's people living at the side of the road, even with their partner and their dog, and begging for money. Yeah, well, these people don't have a property with, tens of thousands of equity. They don't have 150 grand, 160 grand pension. These are people who have nothing. We've got a hell of a lot more than that, and we're going to do our damnedest to have that keep us going till our pensions kick in. Other people are saying, oh well, your pensions might never kick in. Well, I'll take that risk. Right now there are pensions, there are state pensions, so I'm going to go with that. But what will we do if we run out of money? Well, hopefully it won't happen. But do you know what I'm more worried about? What concerns me more is what will I do if one of us runs out of health first? That's what concerns me more. Running out of money is not a scary thing. You can always make money. I don't care how old I am. I'm not worried about being employed. I can be self-employed. I can find something to do. There'll be something that I can do that can earn money. I've always managed to make money somehow. Whether it's doing a job, whether it's doing self-employed, whether it's doing something entrepreneurial, there's always ways of making money. Even more so these days with the internet and everything else. I'm more worried about running out of health. And that's why we're doing this now. We have our health. There are so many things that we want to do, so many hobbies that we want to engage in, and we can't because we're constantly working to pay those bills that are unnecessary, that will all go when the house goes. or mostly go when the house goes. And then we'll have the freedom and the time and some of the money to pursue some of those things. Most of those things that we want to do, that we need the time for, don't cost anything at all. Just walking, going out for walks all day, going out to a woods for a picnic all day long, 2-3 days in a row if we want to. Want to go camping separate, park up the caravan, get the awning set up, go off camping on a camping trip for 2 days, and then come back to the caravan. Things like that you just can't do when you're working, and that's the sort of things we're looking at doing. Going out for a day out in visiting castles and things like that. For me, it means taking a day off work, and I lose 150 pounds just to take a day off work. Whereas we'll have some money in the bank. We can buy a year's subscription to National Trust or what the other one is. I can't think of it off the top of my head now. That gives you access to all the castles and all the English heritage. There you go, all the heritage sites and everything else. So once we've paid that for the year, which is about 100 quid a year for each of them, then it's free. It's free day out, isn't it? Take some sandwiches, things like that I just can't do right now because we've got the constant nagging of those bills that that won't get paid if I don't go to work. Whereas those bills won't be there. Once all the bills are reduced right down, and we have minimal outgoings, which we will, then and we can budget really, really tightly, which again we will, then we'll just be free to do all those things that we want to do while we're still healthy. So as I've said before, if we wait until everything's perfect and we wait until all the finances are totally perfect, then we'll never do this. We'll never do it. It'll never happen. And then bang, some health condition will suddenly come up. I go into more detail about how you never know what's around the corner on one of our membership videos. As I say, if we wait until everything's perfect, you just do not know what's around the corner. So we have to do this. We have to do this now, even if the numbers don't add up. I appreciate you watching. I'll see you soon.